Ketlinova is a neurologist and a musician, but there's something else about her that makes her quite extraordinary. When she was young, she discovered that she was a little different from other people. When Kathleen hears a note of music, her brain represents it not only as a sound, but also as a specific color located in a specific part of her field of vision. And this is not the work of her imagination, it's an automatic and systematic reaction of her brain to a certain stimulus. The video extract you're watching was created with her assistant, so you can experience what she experiences when she plays the violin. You can find a link to the whole video in the description below. Kathleen has a rare form of synesthesia. We can define synesthesia as the automatic association of two sensations in the brain. It seems that between 2 and 4% of the population has one form or another of synesthesia, and there exist more than 60 forms that we know of today. The most common is grapheme color synesthesia, which means the association of numbers and colors. In the case of people with grapheme color synesthesia, the number 3 will always be associated, for example, with the color dark green. And if I were to show them this, they would still be able to see that the 3 is red, but it would create a sort of inner conflict, a bit like if I ask you to say out loud the color of this word. Synesthesia is seen more as an advantage than a defect, since some forms of synesthesia are a real help in certain techniques of memorization. The English writer Daniel Tammet says that he perceives a different shape, color, texture and sensation for every number from 1 to 10,000, which has made it possible for him to memorize 22,514 numbers of pi after the comma. So this is a phenomenon which tells us a lot about the way our brain works and how it creates our reality. And that's what we're going to be exploring on this channel, the creation of our reality. So how is it that people with synesthesia, or synesthetes, can see sounds, hear colors, taste words, or associate naturally colors or shapes with numbers? As a simple illustration of how we create our own reality, I'm going to ask you to imagine you're inside a black box. You're in total darkness and you don't know what there is beyond these four walls. However, you got lucky because on the outside of your box there are some kind of sensors. They pick up bits of information from the outside and transmit them to a sort of central computer, which gives you access to this information. So your light captor will hand on the information it captures in images, your sound captor will send you the information in audio, and so on. So you don't have a direct experience of the outside world because you're in the box, but you can still have an idea of what's outside the box because you have access to some information. We function a little like that. Our senses pick up information from the outside world: light, sound, vibration, taste, smell, warmth, humidity. In other words, everything that our senses allow us to capture, and they send the information to the different parts of our brain which interpret them. Our light captors, situated in our eyes, will send the information they pick up to our visual cortex. Our eardrums, which pick up vibration in the air, will send the information to our auditory cortex, and so on. Now, it's important to understand that our experience of reality is absolutely not objective reality. Objective reality, everything outside the box, and your reality, the information you receive in your box, are two very different things. Objective reality, which happens outside your body, and what you are experiencing now are not the same thing. And there are several reasons for this. First of all, our senses are limited, so we can only pick up a tiny fraction of the information from the outside. Our ears can only pick up sounds between 20 Hz and 20 kHz. A human being cannot hear sounds lower than 20 Hz, nor higher than 20 kHz. However, those sounds do exist, we simply can't hear them, so they don't appear in our reality. In the same way, our eyes only pick up a tiny fraction of light. Our eyes are captors of electromagnetic waves, which we also call light. They only pick up luminous waves from about 380 nanometers to about 780 nanometers, which is only a drop in the ocean compared to the measurable luminous spectrum. If the human eye can only see light between violet and red, it's simply because of the limitation of our eye. Colors stretch to infinity. After red there's infrared and then radio waves, and before violet there's ultraviolets, X-rays and gamma rays. Millions of electromagnetic waves are traveling through your body at this very moment, but you don't realize it because you have no apparatus for picking them up. So we as humans can only pick up a small fraction of all the information available in the outside world. Since our eyes, our ears, and all our senses only capture fragments of the information available, our own personal reality is only a tiny part of the exterior objective reality. The second reason which shows there is a difference between objective reality and subjective reality is that the minimal information from the outside world picked up by our senses is sent to our brain in the form of electrical impulses. All of the raw information picked up by our senses is then treated and distorted by our brain. When our eye picks up an electromagnetic wave of 550 nanometers, the information will be sent to our brain and the brain will interpret it as the color green. So to make it very clear, here's the difference between the outside world and our experience of the outside world. In the real world, it's an electromagnetic wave of 550 nanometers. It has no color. The color green is only the interpretation of this electromagnetic wave created by your brain. And it's very unlikely that your interpretation is exactly the same as mine. So it's not far-fetched to say that we might not see the same colors. It is also important to point out that the brain itself sees nothing and hears nothing. The only thing it can do is to interpret the electrical signal it receives and then use them to create something which helps us to evolve in the outside world. So all the experiences you're having at this moment, the images you're seeing, the sounds you're hearing, the temperature, the humidity, and all the other sensations you can feel right now are all only one and the same thing, tiny electrical and chemical impulses in your brain. It was these ideas and the evil demon concept of Descartes that inspired Gilbert Harman to invent the thought experiment called the brain in the vat. Imagine that you're nothing but a brain floating in a vat. Your brain is connected to a computer which creates a perfect simulation of you watching this video right now. The question is, how can you prove that what you're experiencing is a genuine experience and not a simulation created by a computer, by an evil demon, or by the Matrix? What the brain in the vat experiment suggests is that there is no way to tell if our experiences are real. All we can do is believe they are. Now that we understand how we create our experiences, we can better understand how synesthetes can see sounds, hear colors, or even taste words. In people with synesthesia, the areas of the brain which deal with a certain sensation are connected with other parts of the brain which deal with other sensations. In the case of Katlinova, the part of her brain which deals with music is connected to the visual part which handles colors. So a single stimulus, like a note of music, will activate these two parts of her brain at the same time, which results in two representations of the same stimulus, a sound and a color. It can be argued that the human brain is the most complex system in the universe, but why? The human brain is not the largest in the animal kingdom. An elephant brain weighs about 5 kilos and the brain of a sperm whale weighs about 7 to 8 kilos. The human brain only weighs about 1.2 kilo. And we don't even have the heaviest brain in terms of our body mass either. Even certain small birds beat us in that category. But in the other hand, we have the largest number of neurons in our cortex in comparison with all the other animals on Earth. It is estimated that we have about 100 billion neurons in our brain, and that there are 10,000 times fewer connections in the brain of a monkey than in a human brain. Scientific research seems to demonstrate that human intelligence comes not only from the number of neurons in our cerebral cortex, but also from the structure of our brain. In other words, how it is organized and connected. So everything seems to indicate that synesthesia is more of a potential advantage than the opposite. So you can see that our brain constructs our experience of reality with little information. Its job is to take this trickle of information and treat it in such a way that we evolve as efficiently as possible in our environment. So now that we understand that our reality is not the reality, we can understand a lot of things. Hallucinations, illusions, distortions of time and space, and other things. To help us adapt rapidly to the situations we face, our brain takes shortcuts. It distorts the information it receives, interprets it however it wants, and does a lot of things which widen the gap between our experience and the objective reality. And that's exactly what we'll be talking about on this channel. All the limitations of our brain, all the illusions it creates to round off the corners, and a lot of other things like that. So I hope you liked this video. I hope my accent was not too much of a pain. If you like this video, please share it. That will really help me out get the ball rolling. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. I will try to post videos as regularly as possible. So thank you very much for being here and see you next time.